Hi, third update. Been here on this mooring, tied up for going on 4 weeks now. I was hoping to have some sailing video for you, but here I am, and I gotta tell you, it's been a long 4 weeks. As you know, the trip started with the travel for Croatia, which went very quickly, all the way through to France.
Okay.
And I got to the yard and put the boat in the water. I'm here about 4 weeks now. So I got here pretty quickly. I'm here, everything's going along, and as in the last video, going through the systems on the boat. And I get pretty excited about that, and I'm having a lot of fun with it, as you can tell from this fouling footage. Okay, thought I'd share with everybody one of the projects I worked on, leak cloths. Okay, leak cloths are these things you see sticking up out of the bed. And what they are is when you're sailing at night, for instance, and somebody's sleeping, or during the day, whatever, the sailboat's going to heel a lot, lean from left to right, or whatever. Big waves could come in. And, theoretically or quite realistically, someone could get thrown out of bed. Now, traditional sailing boats that are really built for cruising oceans and such usually have like kind of cubby areas that you're sleeping in with these leak cloths, and you're really snuggled in and they're not going to throw you around. Well, these new show boats, like this one in a way, you get these big open areas with these big open like master bedroom type things, make lull people into buying. You're really gonna get tossed around because there's no walls to the side. You're gonna get thrown pretty badly if things really lean or something like that and you're sleeping. So, but they do have the presence of mind, and unfortunately, they do have the capability to rig up these leak cloths. And so I did that because I'm going to have a captain going with me, and he's going to be down below. This is the cockpit up above. You can see through the window here out the back. That's the table, and you can see out the back of the boat. But he's going to be in the back here. So if I'm up above, he's going to be back here just below. So if I panic and call him, he can come up. But the point being, he is going to be lying in this area right there. And that will be protected for him so that if he leans left or right, or if I screw something up and lean the boat one way or the other, he won't go flying across the room. And you can see I've rigged these things up. They're designed to do it. I put the ropes up, the lines up to these hooks. And one of the things I had to figure out, just getting into the details, was this. Over here on the back, this part leaned right into that little light fixture. And originally I'm thinking, I've got to take the light fixture off because that is going to break it right off if somebody leans against it. But then I figured out, what? If I run a line right over to this other figure, a cross rope, it stops it from going over there. So that's why that is there. But this is the sort of thing you do when you have the time. So anyway, lesson 1, lean cloths, or lee cloths. Thank you, not lean cloths, but lee cloths. Okay, lesson 2. I'm going to pull this floorboard up. Float. There we go. Yeah, it's a heavy one because it's got a lot of insulation on the back, as you can see there. You see all that insulation? That's because that floorboard, covers the back of the engine compartment. That's the hot water heater. You look forward here, and that's the sail drive where the propeller connects. It's basically the transmission of the boat. And forward of that is the engine. So anyway, backing up. So looking down here, one of the things I want to talk about is the fuel filter. So diesel fuel comes through this filter. You can see over here, there's 2 hoses or lines that go into it. One in, one out. So that comes from the fuel tank. And this is the secondary filter. This is the one, well, it's the first one the fuel goes through. There's another one at the engine itself. But I've watched the technician work on this. It also separates water. So if water comes in along the fuel, it's going to go down in that bowl in the bottom. And this little sensor, you see the wires, will actually send an alarm to let you know there's water in the fuel, but it keeps it from going to the engine. So this is the first filter, the one that does most of the work. this is something I'm going to want to replace with a better filter system, I think, in the future. Something that, number one, is easier to replace the filter, because with this one you actually have to unscrew the bottom, drop it down, etc., etc. It takes a while, and it's a little messy. They have better ones called Raycor filters, where you unscrew a cap on the top and you pull the cartridge out and put it back in without having to do all that. And also, something I want to have is a vacuum gauge, which measures the vacuum between this filter and the filter on the engine, because there is the fuel is being pumped into the engine from here, and it creates sort of a vacuum because it's pulling. And this, the more clogged this filter gets, the higher the vacuum will be, and that gauge will measure it, and that will tell you if you're close to needing to replace the filter. So it's something really good to have as a diagnostic tool to figure out when things go bad with your engine. And that's the whole point of this, is that many times with a diesel engine in these boats, when I'm reading, again, this is my research, I'm a novice, is that many times it has to do with the fuel system. And so having that ability to quickly change a filter and have the diagnostic capability of that gauge will help you recover more quickly. And that's important, because these things usually happen at the worst times. So, future project, lesson 2. So I'm trying to stay excited, geeking out on these projects, keeping into it. And, the work still continues. So I was down below, and I heard this noise. I knew these guys were working on fixing some of the wind instruments. And I heard this noise above, and I looked up, and there's this guy. So he's at the top of the mast, and that's 60 feet in the air above the boat. And I look up, and there he is. So I grabbed the camera and started recording him. He's replacing the wind speedometer, the little wind instruments at the top of the mast. So here I am in the boat, and his other guy is out on the back in the cockpit. As time wore on, things have really begun to wind down. Okay, it's pretty quiet here on the weekend. Right there is actually the office of the local representative for the shipyard. And docked right in front, and that's my rental car right there. There's the crane where it was dropped in over in the distance. And this is a big section of the harbor here. And over in that direction is where they have a lot of the housing projects which go off these fingers into the harbor. And off in that direction on land is where the store is, about a quarter-mile away. Marinas are parking lots for boats, and they're pretty isolated in the off-season and during COVID. So I find myself, walking to the harbor and videotaping the current. Oh yeah, and so there was some wind one day, so I went up and videotaped some wind. So pretty exciting stuff happening. A few more days go by, and then we get some rain in the middle of the night. So I jump out of bed and go test out the radar. And so you can see the radar here and showing the rain and the cloud formations around the boat, which is kind of cool. Something to do with 3 in the morning when you're bored. But since everything's working on the nav gear, I switch over to some of the other screens, and here you see the overlay with the chart plotter, and you can see the radar overlay, the pink area on there. And then look at the dashboard, and you can see the wind instruments are working, so it's only 13 knots of wind, etc. So, yeah, just killing time, trying to find something to do. You're about to see what happens when you combine a couple weeks of isolation, a few glasses of wine, and a guy that wants to talk to somebody with a video recording. So listen, people, you're stuck alone for weeks, 2, 3. What do you do with yourself? No TV, none of the stuff that you know. The routine is broken. You're in this place, remote, no COVID lockdown. There's no one to talk to. You're just by yourself. What do you do? Well, for me, it's actually been pretty damn good. I've been able to do some things that you always think about doing, but you never do. So I picked up a book. I read a book. I haven't read a book in 20 years. Which one? Hemingway, For Whom the Bell Tolls. Don't ask me why I picked it. I did. I'll find something else too. But there you go. So that's one thing, right? Coltrane, great jazz musician. Never really listened much, but hey, I'm listening to him now. It's great. I never made the time. What else? Podcasts. This micro podcast I found is really cool. Drinking some good French wine. Obviously, being over here, do that. But there are things that you do that you wouldn't. So hats off a little bit to the lockdown. Hats off to being isolated over here and having this downtime. But it's actually I'm come to appreciate it. Obviously, I miss everybody back home. I would love to have them here sharing this experience with me, but it's kind of rewarding in some sense. Verisimilitude, another word I learned today. Never heard of it before. I'll probably forget it tomorrow, but it was interesting. So anyway, this is what you do when you're kind of sitting around for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, going on 4 weeks, waiting for stuff to happen. But you know what? It's not so bad. So trust me, I'm quite aware these last few videos are not living up to the excitement of what I was expecting for this project. But the good news is the paperwork seems to have gone through. At least I've been told tomorrow it should be done, which means in the next few days, maybe 3 days, could be on the water heading to Gibraltar, which would be very exciting. And should have some footage then, of course, assuming that goes through. But, hopefully next time I have something a little bit better to share and less of me pontificating on lockdown and being stuck on a boat. All right, everybody. Next time, see you. Cheers.